No one expects to hear a life-changing truth after 40, but sometimes she arrives when everything seems too late. It was an ordinary afternoon. It was raining outside, and he watched the drops running down the window pane of the small apartment where he lived alone. The table was covered in bills, papers, and mementos from a past that no longer made sense. The clock on the wall showed 4:30, the same time years before, when he used to arrive home exhausted from work. Now there was no work, no routine, only the sound of the clock hands repeating the question that hurt the most. What if I had started sooner? At 43, he felt like a 60-year-old man. He carried the weariness of someone who had tried everything and seen little result. He had jobs, courses, businesses, but no legacy. The body was still strong, but the soul was already silent. And in the midst of that silence, he noticed something that frightened him. I was afraid of growing old, without purpose. The fear of waking up one day and realizing that nothing I've done has truly mattered. That night, fate seemed to be playing a trick on him. As he went downstairs to buy bread, he found a gentleman sitting on a park bench. A serene face, a white beard, firm hands, the kind of presence that makes time slow down. The old man looked at him and smiled as if he already knew him. Without asking permission, he simply said, "You're not old, you're stuck." He laughed, not understanding. The old man continued, "Age doesn't hold you back. It's the stories you repeat so you don't have to change." Those words echoed for days. Who was that man? And how could he know so much without asking anything? The stranger seemed to see something he himself had forgotten. The will to live, hidden beneath the weight of obligations. In the following days, he began to return to the square, almost unintentionally. And the old man was always there, reading a small notebook with a worn cover. One day, curiosity won. "What are you writing there?" The old man looked up and replied without haste, "The mistakes I made before understanding the value of time. It took me 45 years to discover what truly matters. Since then, I write so as not to forget." He remained silent, impressed. The old man noticed and added, "If you want, I can tell you what I've learned. But be warned, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with luck or getting rich quick. They're rules, 7 rules that billionaires follow, but almost no one teaches them. 7 rules. The phrase sounded strange but powerful. Why 7? The old man answered before he even asked, "Because it's the building's number. In 6 days the world is made, on the 7th its purpose is understood." At that moment, something lit up. It wasn't curiosity, it was hope, a feeling he no longer remembered what it was like. The old man invited him to come back the next day. Come before sunset. The first rule can only be stated when the day begins to draw to a close. Throughout the following day, he thought about it. What kind of rule could only be stated at dusk? Was it just a metaphor, or was there something more? Time seemed to drag on until the appointed hour. When the sun began to set, he left. The old man was waiting for him on the same bench, as if he hadn't moved since the previous day. The air felt different. The golden sky reflected on the man's calm face. Without mincing words, he said, "Before I teach you about wealth, I need to teach you about poverty." The phrase disarmed him. The old man explained, "Poverty is not the lack of money. It's a lack of direction. You're not lacking resources, you're lacking rhythm. And every man who loses his rhythm loses the sparkle of life." As he spoke, the old man took a small hourglass out of his pocket. The sound of the sand falling was almost hypnotic. That's how time moves, slowly, silently, until it's over. But there's something curious. The sand only flows because the space is free. If you are filled with fear, regret, or haste, time stands still, and along with it, wealth. He stared at the object, trying to understand what it meant. The old man continued, "After 40, the secret is not to run. It's about learning to let time work for you. Young people win through speed, mature people through clarity." Those words hit him hard. How many times had he tried to speed things up? How many times have you confused movement with progress? Perhaps the mistake wasn't in starting late, but in never having stopped to think. The old man then put away the hourglass and said something that would keep him awake for nights. The first rule of wealth is invisible. Only those who have lost their way can see it. The man took a deep breath. He knew he was about to hear something that would change everything, but the old man simply stood up, touched his shoulder, and concluded, "Come back tomorrow. Money feels what you feel. And before I teach you how to win, I need to teach you how to feel." The old man walked away slowly, letting the sound of his footsteps mingle with the noise of the rain that was beginning to fall. He stood there, watching the sky close in with clouds. That night, he slept with a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time, the feeling that the future had finally called him back. And while trying to understand what the old man meant by "money feels what you feel," a new question began to grow within him, the one that would open the next part of the journey. Could the secret to wealth lie not in what we do, but in how we feel while we do it? The next morning, he woke before sunrise. His body was still tired, but his mind was alert. He slowly brewed his coffee, watching the steam rise from the cup and mingle with the cool kitchen air. It was strange to feel anticipation after so long. For years, waking up early had been a burden. Now, it felt like a calling. When he arrived at the square, the old man was already there, as if he had been waiting for him forever. Sitting with the same calm demeanor, he watched the people hurrying by, as if the world were always running late. Without saying a word, the old man invited him to sit down. They remained silent for a few minutes until he asked curiously, "Yesterday you said that money feels what I feel. What does that mean?" The old man spun the hourglass in his palm and replied, "It means that money is an extension of your energy. It is not rational as you think. It is sensitive, and like everything that is sensitive, it reacts to the emotional climate of the person who possesses it." He laughed suspiciously. "So you're saying money has feelings?" The old man replied, "Not feelings, but frequency. When you treat it with fear, it learns to run away. When you treat it with gratitude, it finds a reason to come back." The man fell silent. It seemed too symbolic. But the old man challenged him. "Think about the last time you paid a bill in anger. What happened afterward? Another bill appeared, didn't it? And when you paid for something joyfully, even something simple, something good returned, perhaps a compliment, a phone call, an opportunity. That's a reflection of your vibration. Money merely mirrors your state." He remembered a day when, even though he was in debt, he bought flowers for his mother. That same day, he received an unexpected message from a former client offering him work. He also remembered times when he paid for something cursing the expense, and then another expense would appear. For the first time, he began to suspect that perhaps there was a hidden logic in the coincidences. The old man noticed the change in her gaze and continued, "Since you were young, you've been taught to hoard out of fear. They call it prudence, but it's disguised fear. Hoarding out of fear is declaring to life that you don't trust it, and life only confirms what you believe." He paused, and the silence seemed to carry weight. "Therefore, the first rule is simple. Never hoard money out of fear. Hoard it with purpose." The old man pulled a small yellowed envelope from his pocket. Inside were 3 carefully folded banknotes. "This is my joy fund," he said. "It's the money I set aside not for emergencies, but for gratitude. Whenever something goes right, I put some in here. When I feel grateful, I put some in. And when I use this money, I only use it to create good moments, a gift, a short trip, a dinner with someone I love." The man asked, "And what's the practical difference between that?" The old man replied, "Everything. Fear breeds isolation. Gratitude opens doors. Money hoarded out of fear hardens and stops circulating. Money hoarded out of joy transforms into seeds, and every seed returns multiplied." As he listened, he began to remember how he treated his own money. All he had was a messy drawer full of overdue bills and loose coins. There was no joy or care there. It was as if each piece of paper carried shame. For the first time, he understood that the problem wasn't a lack of money, but the emotional environment he created around it. The old man asked him to observe the people around him, a young man with headphones, walking briskly, a woman on her cell phone, complaining about bills, a fruit vendor counting coins with a smile. "Look closely," said the old man. Those who are grateful always have something more. Those who complain always have something less. The difference lies in the emotion they put into simple gestures. He pondered this for hours. He noticed how every time he talked about money, his voice sounded weary, as if talking about finances was a curse. But that afternoon, when he got home, he decided to do something different. He took an old box, cleaned it, lined it with fabric, and wrote on a sheet of paper, "Gratitude Fund." He placed a single $10 bill inside. He smiled. It was little, but it was the first gesture of positive emotion in a long time. Over the following days, she began to observe her own thoughts. She noticed how fear appeared in small phrases. "There won't be enough. It's risky. I can't trust her." Each of these phrases was like an invisible wall blocking the flow. So she decided to replace each fear with a new question. What if it works out? What if it's enough? What if time is on my side? Gradually, he began to notice subtle changes. He received a message from an acquaintance offering simple consulting services. Then, someone he had done a favor for years before invited him to participate in a project. Coincidence or not, it seemed that the internal shift was beginning to reflect outwardly. One day, he asked the old man, "So the secret is just thinking positively?" The old man laughed. "No, the secret is feeling genuinely. Thinking positively is surface noise. Feeling gratitude is profound silence. And it is in that silence that money understands its way back." The man remained silent, looking at his hands. "But what if the fear returns?" he asked. The old man replied, "It will return. Fear is stubborn, but when it comes, don't fight it. Be grateful. Fear only appears where there is still a desire to grow. Use it as a compass. Where there is fear, there is a path." He had never thought like that before. It was a complete reversal of what he had learned his whole life. Fear instead of an enemy, as a guide, and joy instead of a reward, as a starting point. Before leaving, the old man made him promise one thing. For the next 7 days, write down every time you talk or think about money. And each time, record the emotion that came with it. I'm not interested in how much came in or went out. I want to know if there was fear, anger, or gratitude, the man promised. And as he walked back home, he felt the weight of his words transforming into a challenge. He realized that true change didn't begin in the wallet, but in the heart. That night, while writing in his notebook, he understood that something inside him was changing. He couldn't explain it, but he felt it. For the first time in years, money ceased to be an invisible enemy and became a mirror. And looking into that mirror, he saw a different reflection, that of someone who could still start over. But the old man had left one last warning. Don't confuse feeling with dreaming. Emotion creates the field, but the body needs to act. The next time we see each other, I'll show you what truly hinders prosperity. And I warn you, it's not what enters the body, it's what never leaves your house. He stood there trying to decipher the phrase. What could be in his house that was blocking prosperity? As he turned off the light, he looked around and felt the weight of the accumulated things, piles of objects kept for fear of needing them someday. It was then that he realized perhaps the next secret wasn't about money, but about space. The next morning, he woke up feeling different. He couldn't explain why, but the room seemed smaller, the air heavier, and the sunlight streaming through the window revealed a mess he hadn't seen in years. Piles of clothes, papers, broken objects, a museum of postponed decisions. Each thing seemed to tell a story he didn't want to remember. For a moment, he understood what the old man had meant in their last conversation. Perhaps poverty wasn't outside, but in the excess of everything he kept for fear of losing it. Late in the afternoon, he returned to the square. The old man was standing there, watching the sunset. When he saw him approaching, he pointed to the ground covered in dry leaves and said, "Time is the greatest sculptor there is. It only works when it learns to remove what is left over." Without him realizing it, the old man led him to a small workshop at the end of a narrow street. The place was simple, but every tool seemed to have its place. No object was out of place. There was a piece there that didn't exist anywhere else. The old man lit a lamp and said, "The world is full of people who want to accumulate, but almost no one has learned to make space. Money, ideas, opportunities, everything needs space to enter. The problem is that most people live like a house locked from the inside. He looked around and, for the first time, realized that the order of that place had a kind of silent energy. Nothing was luxurious, but everything seemed alive. "Why does everything here seem light?" he asked. The old man replied, "Because everything here was chosen. Everything that has no purpose weighs you down, and what weighs you down hinders the flow." How many things did he keep just in case? Those old sneakers for when it rained, the papers in case I needed them someday, the broken watch because it has sentimental value. The truth is, none of it protected him. Everything he kept was a reminder of fear. The old man handed him a small wooden box and said, "Take it home. Tomorrow I want you to put inside only 5 objects that truly represent who you are today. Nothing from the past, nothing from the future, only the present." He carried the box as one who bears a sacred responsibility. That night, he began the task. He opened the closet and stood still. Each piece of clothing seemed to hold a memory, each memory a weight. Throwing them away felt like a betrayal. But as he placed the items in the box, he began to feel something new. Lightness. He realized that part of the exhaustion he had carried for years came from the sheer number of things he needed to hold on to. Have you ever noticed how the things we accumulate begin to possess us? He realized this, and he wondered how many dreams had he let die simply because there was no space for them to flourish. How many times had the fear of losing something prevented something new from arriving? The next day, he returned with the box in his hands. The old man opened it, looked inside and smiled. A photograph, a book, a notebook, a pen, and a simple watch. "Now that's more like it," he said. "You've learned the first step to prosperity, emptying." But the old man didn't stop there. He took him to the back of the workshop and showed him an empty shelf. "Do you know what I keep here?" he asked. "Nothing, because it's empty space that attracts the new. When you have everything, nothing seeks you out. When you have space, everything finds you." The man fell silent, digesting the words. The old man continued, "This applies to the house, the mind, and the heart. If your house is full of things, your mind is full of noise. And if your mind is full of noise, the universe cannot hear you." That night on his way home, he decided to go further. He donated clothes, threw away piles of old papers, deleted files from his computer. Each discard seemed to lift an invisible weight. It was as if each clean drawer opened up space for a new idea, and that's exactly what happened. While organizing her desk, she found an old draft, a business idea she had abandoned years before. She read it again, and for the first time felt no fear. She felt desire. The idea still made sense, but now it came with something she had never had before: clarity. Why does it take us so long to understand that physical clutter is just a reflection of emotional clutter? How many projects die because there isn't enough silence to listen to one's own intuition? The old man was right. Prosperity is movement, and movement only arises where there is space. He began to see this in everything. People who were stuck in jobs they hated but were afraid to leave. Families who hoarded things out of insecurity and constantly complained about their bad luck. Businesses that never prospered because they were surrounded by old habits. Everything reflected the same principle: those who are afraid to lose never win. One day he asked the old man, "But what if I throw away something that could still be useful?" The old man smiled. "Then you've learned to trust, because those who trust the flow know that what is essential always returns." Those words stuck with him. For the first time he understood that abundance wasn't about accumulating, but about allowing movement. What is fixed dies. What circulates lives, just like breathing, inhaling and exhaling, giving and receiving. To prosper is to breathe. As the sun set, the old man gave him a new challenge. "For the next 3 days, I want you to observe your routine. Cut out anything you repeat unnecessarily. Replace anything that consumes your time and brings no return. And silence anything that doesn't nourish your spirit. Emptiness is not absence, it's an invitation." That night, he went home and turned off the lights. He remained silent, listening only to the sound of his own heart. For the first time, that silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like space. And then a new question struck him like a lightning bolt. If space attracts the new, what happens when the wrong people occupy the space that should be free? The answer would come soon, and it would be the most difficult of all. The following morning, he arrived at the square carrying something different. It was no longer just curiosity. It was a mixture of calm and fear. Calm because he felt he was cleansing not only the house, but his mind. Fear because deep down, he knew the old man was about to touch upon a type of attachment that was harder to let go of: people. The old man watched him in silence. He had the look of someone who already knew what was coming next. When he approached, the old man simply said, "You learned to make space. Now you need to learn to protect the space you made." The man didn't understand. The old man stood up and began to walk slowly. People are the greatest investment and the greatest risk of your life, and almost no one knows how to value that. They waste energy trying to save those who don't want to be saved. They call it love, but it's fear disguised as virtue. They walked to a simple cafe on the corner. The old man ordered 2 black coffees and continued, "Research shows that the environment influences up to 95% of the decisions we make every day. This means that if you live surrounded by negative people, you don't decide, you just react. And what destroys a man's prosperity the most is not poverty, but associating with those who constantly complain about it." The man fell silent. He remembered friends who only sought him out when they needed something, family members who used guilt to control them, colleagues who mocked any attempt at change. The old man seemed to read his thoughts. The rich don't distance themselves from the poor out of arrogance. They distance themselves out of self-preservation. Despair is contagious. Guilt is too. Why is it so hard to accept that some people need to leave? The old man replied without being asked, "Because you confuse loyalty with imprisonment. You think cutting a tie is a lack of empathy, but in truth, it is the first act of love for yourself." As he spoke, the old man took a coin from his pocket and placed it on the table. "Look at this coin. On one side is what you give, on the other what you receive. If what you give doesn't return in the form of respect, peace, and growth, the cycle is broken. And where there is a broken cycle, there is a leakage of energy." The man watched the coin spin on the table, mesmerized. How many times had he exhausted himself trying to be generous, believing that the effort would be recognized? How many times had he helped someone who, instead of thanking him, only demanded more? He began to understand that true wealth was not how much one possessed, but how much one could protect. The old man told the story of a friend, a businessman, who lost almost everything trying to support relatives who never wanted to work. He believed he was being fair, but by paying their bills, he was robbing them of the chance to become responsible. Money given without conscience becomes poison. As he spoke, the old man showed a notebook. On one of the pages was written, "To help is to uplift, not to alleviate." He explained, "When you pay someone who refuses to grow, you interrupt the process that the universe created to awaken them. It's like pulling a seed out of the ground because it's covered in mud. You kill what was about to be born." The man remembered how many times he had done this. How many times he had spared people the consequences of their own choices. He realized that deep down, he did it out of fear of being forgotten, out of fear of being seen as selfish. But the old man didn't stop there. Whoever feels guilty about saying no is condemned to be used for the rest of their life. Guilt is the collar that society puts around the necks of the generous. Learn to say no calmly. It's the most liberating sound there is. Behavioral studies show that people who don't set boundaries are up to 60% more likely to develop anxiety and depression. The old man knew these numbers by heart. See, a lack of boundaries destroys even the body. The heart wasn't made to carry the emotional weight of others. But the old man wasn't talking about isolation. He was talking about reciprocity. Helping those who want to learn is an investment. Helping those who don't want to learn is a waste, and life charges dearly for waste. He also told a surprising story. He said that years ago, he helped a young man who wanted to start a business. The young man asked for advice and received a list of simple tasks. Come back tomorrow and tell me what you did. The young man never returned. When someone asks for help and does nothing with it, the request was just a way to get attention. The world is full of energy beggars. Learn to recognize them. The man thought about the messages he received, the people who disappeared as soon as he stopped helping. It was a pattern, and suddenly he realized perhaps he was surrounded not by friends, but by mirrors, people who merely reflected his fear of being alone. The old man looked at him with a slight smile. Now you understand. The solitude you fear is, in fact, the rest you need. Because only when the noise of others' expectations falls silent do you hear the sound of your own calling. That phrase completely affected him. He had never thought that solitude could be a good thing. He had always believed that being surrounded by people was a sign of strength. But for the first time, he realized the opposite. Some presences weigh more than absences. That night, he made a list. He wrote down the names of all the people who occupied his life and marked those who truly added value. He discovered that less than half inspired him. The rest only drained his energy. She cried when she realized that some of those names were of people she loved most. But she decided that from then on, she would not let herself be weakened by the fear of disappointing them. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to please everyone, the emptier you feel? That the more you try to be useful, the less time you have left to be whole? He realized this, and in that instant, the weight he had carried for years began to dissolve. Before leaving, the old man offered one last piece of advice. When you cut a tie, don't feel guilty. Feel grateful. Those who leave fulfill the role of making room for those who will come. As he walked back, the man understood something profound. Life isn't about carrying everyone, but about walking with those who also want to walk. And for the first time in a long time, the silence that accompanied him wasn't emptiness, it was peace. But the old man wasn't finished yet. In their next conversation, he promised to reveal something that would transform not only how he viewed work, but the meaning of time itself. Because time, the old man said, is the only currency that never comes back, and most people spend it on things they don't love. That afternoon, the old man awaited him in the same square, but there was something different in his gaze, a silent gravity, as if he knew that what he was about to say would require more courage than all the previous lessons. When the man approached, the old man smiled and said, "Now that you have learned to make space and protect what is yours, the time has come to rebuild. From here on, everything you do with your hands must have purpose." They sat down in the shade of an old tree. The old man took out a small pocket watch and placed it on the table. This watch was made by an 83-year-old craftsman, he explained. He could have stopped working decades ago, but he said that each new piece kept him alive. He understood something that almost everyone has forgotten. Work isn't just about making money, it's about keeping the spirit alive. The man watched the clock. The hands moved slowly, with almost silent precision. "But what happens when work becomes exhaustion?" he asked. The old man replied, "That happens when you work to escape, not to create. The body ages faster when the soul is bored. Meaningful work is what keeps time on your side." The man thought about how many years he had spent doing things he hated just to pay bills, how many times he had accepted suffocating jobs for fear of taking risks. He realized the old man was right. Time hadn't aged him. It was disinterest. The old man continued, "Research shows that people who find purpose in their work live an average of 7 years longer and are 50% less likely to develop depression. This is no coincidence. The mind needs direction to stay healthy. When purpose dies, the body begins to give up along with it." The man looked at his hands, remembering how much he enjoyed writing, something he had abandoned because he found it unprofitable. How many silent talents had he himself buried? How many dreams had been traded for security? The question haunted him. What is the point of surviving if the price is ceasing to live? The old man understood what was going on in his mind and said, "You don't need another job. You need a work of art, something that makes you wake up wanting to keep going. It doesn't matter if it's a company, an idea, or a song. What matters is that it's yours. As he spoke, the old man picked up a piece of wood and began to carve. Without looking, each stroke of the knife produced a hypnotic sound. You see, this is prayer. Each gesture is a dialogue with time. The body works, the soul responds. Suddenly, the old man stopped and stared at him. But there's something even more important. After 40, you need to learn to say no to jobs that pay well but kill you slowly. There are jobs that are like expired medicine. They relieve you today. They poison you tomorrow. He remembered colleagues who were always tired, who earned well, but had empty eyes. People who worked out of fear of losing what little control they had over their own lives. And for the first time, he understood that work can also be a prison, disguised as routine. The old man then spoke on another topic in a lower voice. There comes a time when time becomes the most valuable asset. A young person can waste years trying to fix mistakes. But after 40, every choice is an investment. Don't waste time on what doesn't expand your consciousness. The man became thoughtful. But what about the money? He asked. The old man smiled. Money is the result of clarity, not haste. If what you do is useful and true, the money will come. But if you work only for it, you will end up living tired and afraid. Suddenly, the old man pulled a piece of paper from his pocket and drew a simple line. Look, here is the financial life cycle of almost everyone. Work, spend, complain, repeat. Now look at the cycle of those who prosper. Work, learn, invest, multiply, teach. The difference lies in awareness, not in luck. The man looked at the drawing and realized how his own life fit into the first cycle. Work, spend, complain, repeat. For years, he believed that effort was enough. He never understood that effort without direction is just a disguised form of giving up. The old man continued. Invest in what you understand. That's rule number 6. The world is full of people who lose everything by looking for shortcuts. If you can't explain investing to a child, don't invest. True growth is simple. Only deception is complicated. He told the story of a friend who had lost all his savings on a promise of quick profit. He wanted to earn in 1 month what he didn't have the patience to build in 10 years. The result was the opposite. Money that comes without effort leaves the same trail as love without truth. It disappears quickly. Those words stuck with him. The man realized that more than avoiding mistakes, he needed to start acting consciously. Because deep down, the old man wasn't teaching about wealth, but about rhythm. Everything that is sustainable grows slowly. The old man leaned forward and spoke more softly. Did you know that 80% of people who win the lottery lose everything within 5 years? They don't lose the money, they lose control. The brains of those who get rich quickly don't understand the value of time. And those who don't understand time destroy what they gain. The man took a deep breath. He felt a mixture of fear and admiration. So true wealth isn't about earning more, but about sustaining what you earn, he asked. The old man smiled. Exactly. And the only way to sustain something is to keep growing, not financially, but internally. Money always follows the level of your consciousness, never the other way around. The sun was beginning to set, and the old man slowly rose. You've already learned almost everything you need to thrive, but there's something that separates those who change for a time from those who change forever. It's habit. The body needs routine, just as the heart needs meaning. And that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. The man watched the old man walk away. The orange sky reflected on the wet ground, and for a moment, he felt as if he were about to cross an invisible border between what he did out of obligation and what he would do out of love. As he walked home, he thought of the old man's words. Money is the result of clarity. He repeated that phrase in a low voice until it sounded true. For the first time, the future didn't seem distant. It seemed like just an extension of what he would choose to do every day. But the old man had promised something greater, the last rule, the secret that united all the others, the rule that transformed effort into destiny. And deep down, he knew that this would be the most difficult of all. The next morning, the old man was already waiting for him. He was sitting on the same bench as always, but there was something different about him. A serenity that only exists in someone who has already said everything they needed to say. When the man approached, the old man smiled and spoke in a calm voice. "Today I won't teach you anything more. I'll just show you how to live what you've already learned." They sat in silence for a while. The distant sound of birds and the light breeze rustling through the trees seemed to announce that this meeting would be their last. The old man took a small folded piece of paper from his pocket and placed it on the table. "Here's what's missing. Turning wisdom into routine." Most people hear advice and feel inspired, but they don't change. They confuse emotion with transformation. The secret is to act while the heart is still warm. The man opened the paper. Inside was a short list written in firm handwriting. Wake up 10 minutes earlier to plan your day. Make a small daily act of prosperity. Save money, learn something, or teach something. Write down everything you do. Progress doesn't live in memory, it lives in the record. Review what you've learned and what you need to let go of every week. Repeat the cycle for 30 days. Then start again. The old man explained, "This is more than a routine. It's training the mind to create the habit of growth. Every gesture, however small it may seem, is a seed. Prosperity is an invisible field, and what you plant in silence will one day blossom before everyone's eyes." The man stared at the words, trying to understand the simplicity of the list. After so many lessons, he expected something grand, a mysterious revelation. But the old man smiled and added, "Greatness always hides in small repetitions. What differentiates those who change from those who only dream is consistency. Those who repeat consciously awaken." The old man paused and continued. "For years, people have sought magic formulas to get rich, but they have ignored the only truth that never fails. Discipline is the most silent form of faith. Every time you act, even without seeing results, you are saying to life, 'I believe.'" The man remembered how many times he had given up halfway through, how many projects he had put off, how many promises he had made to himself and not kept. And at that moment, he understood what the old man meant. Change doesn't begin when you learn something new, but when you finally decide to put what you already know into practice. The old man then looked up and said, "You want a real plan? Then listen carefully. Over the next 7 days, I want you to choose just one of the 7 rules you've learned. Only one. It could be eliminating fear, taking care of your mind and body, organizing your space, protecting your energy, finding purpose in your work, investing consciously, or taking action every day. Choose the one that resonates most with you right now. And for 7 days, live as if it were the only truth in your life. Don't talk about it, just practice it. If it's about discipline, keep to a schedule. If it's about gratitude, give thanks aloud. If it's about eliminating excess, donate what weighs you down. If it's about purpose, wake up and work for what you love, even if no one sees the value in it. At the end of these 7 days, write down what has changed, not just on the outside, but on the inside. The man nodded. The old man continued, "Then, in the 2nd week, add the next rule, and continue like that. Every 7 days, add a new one. In 49 days, you will have created the complete cycle of prosperity, body, mind, and spirit aligned. Life doesn't change in a leap. It changes when you walk in the same rhythm as what you believe." The old man's voice began to weaken, but his words grew even stronger. "And when discouragement comes, remember, results come to those who endure the silence between effort and reward. The universe observes more what you repeat than what you promise." The man felt a lump in his throat. He knew this would be their last meeting. The old man looked at the horizon and added, "True wealth isn't money. It's the peace of mind of laying your head on the pillow and knowing you did what needed to be done. It's the silent pride of someone who chose to grow instead of complaining." The old man then placed his hand on the man's shoulder and said, "If you want to honor all that you have learned, don't try to change the world. Change one habit. The rest will come naturally." The sun was already setting when the old man stood up and began to walk away slowly. The man wanted to thank him, but the old man raised his hand and said, Don't thank me, thank time. It is time that gives you the chance to start over every day. As the old man lost himself among the trees, the man realized he didn't feel sad. He felt peace, because now I understood that the end of the lessons wasn't the end of the journey. It was the beginning of the practice. That night, when he got home, he opened the notebook and wrote, "Day 1, action." Then he placed the old man's paper on the table and smiled. The clock showed 11:47 p.m., the same time it had all begun. But this time seemed to be working in his favor. He took a deep breath, turned off the lights, and promised himself, from tomorrow on, every minute will be an investment. Now, that promise is yours too. If something in this video resonated with you, it's because the desire to change already exists within you. So start. Not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect, but now. Choose a rule and apply it today. Track your progress, repeat your actions, and observe what happens when you live with purpose. And if you want to continue growing with me, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share in the comments what touched you the most. You can be anonymous if you prefer. Every comment is a step towards change, because in the end, the real secret to wealth is simple. What you practice every day becomes who you are.